Hello, welcome to the show. I'm Bren, and today I'm going to be talking to you lot about games with live action cutscenes. What are those, you ask? Well, a live action cutscene is something that game developers way back in the day used to put in games to make them feel more cinematic, to give you a higher level of immersion into video games. Sometimes they were great, sometimes they were not so great, but today we're going to look at one game in particular called Disruptor, and let's see if they got it right. This is Disruptor, a first-person shooter for the PlayStation 1, developed by Insomniac. Yes, Insomniac, who would later go on to develop the Spyro series, Ratchet & Clank, and more recently Marvel's 2018 Spider-Man. Heading back in time to 1995, Disruptor was originally meant to be developed for the 3DO, as at the time of conception it was the only disc-based system on the market, and that meant the game could have full live-action cutscenes. Live-action cutscenes were pretty awesome at the time. It was not something we saw a lot in video games, and when they were done well, it really gave an extra spice to it. Something more cinematic. In older titles, you looked forward to seeing the next part of the story. It was a reward to see the next cutscene, and Disruptor was one that did that rather well.
Now who's this, sir?
That's the top of your class.
Troy Alexander?
He seems to know his way around the block. How about you?
Well, I did say rather well. Most of the time these cutscenes were filmed on very low budgets and the acting could come off as a bit cheap and ropey. But then in other game series, like the Wing Commander games, they starred massive actors like Malcolm McDowell and Mark Hamill. But that's a story for another day.
As you know, Colonel Devereaux's status is on a need-to-know basis.
Disruptor doesn't feature anyone of notable fame except Vaughn Armstrong, who plays President Krieger. He's now known for his role in Star Trek Enterprise in 2001, but at the time he wasn't that famous. Anthony Palermo actually went on to do a couple of other films like Poltergeist the Legacy and Rollerball. Oh, and he appeared in this episode of How I Met Your Mother. Yeah, there he is.
All right, Bob Marley, let's have a conversation.
Partway through development though, it was becoming very clear that the 3DO was going to flop big time, so lead producer Mark Cerny said it would be best to switch development over to the PlayStation 1. It turns out that was a smart move. Mark Cerny is a name you may have heard a lot. He's had a very prolific career in video games and joined the industry when he was just 17, hooking up with Atari, but his first success was with Marble Madness, where he was the designer and co-programmer. He also worked for Sega Japan and USA, and even worked on Sonic the Hedgehog 2. As you can see, he got around a lot, and he did so much for the games industry, I could probably make an entire documentary just on Mark Cerny himself. But I digress. Let's get back to Disruptor. The gameplay was your standard affair of first-person shooting, but it added the ability to use powers known as psionics. These psychic-style powers were unlocked as you progressed through the game, and that alone gave you a sense of getting stronger as you played more. Each one does different things, ranging from shock attacks, big blasts, a shield, and healing powers. It drains your psionic power with use, and to recharge it, you use another ability called Drain. This drains the enemies it comes in contact with, and you can collect these orbs to charge up your psionics again. It adds a nice unique layer to the game where others in the same genre felt samey and generic. It was something different, and it was praised for trying to stand out from the crowd, and this brought it out of the sea of mediocrity of Doom clones that were everywhere at the time. The story, as you would imagine, is pretty weak. The actors do an okay job of pulling you through its missions, but don't go in expecting a lore that will blow your socks off. Its main focus is the gameplay, and thankfully it does that very well. The controls are, as you'd imagine them to be, pretty clunky. It's one of those shooters that had strafe buttons. The early days of FPS controls before they figured it all out. Not as bad as Life Force Tenka though. Now don't get me wrong, that is a great game, but using the shoulder buttons on a PlayStation 1 controller to look up and down, well that took a lot of getting used to. The weapons all handle well, except some of them feel like they fire just a little bit too slow. but they all offer enough variety to keep things interesting. It's challenging at times too, limiting ammo pickups and health, adding to the difficulty, but it never feels unfair and it has been balanced very well. The music was another plus point with reviewers at the time because it was situation sensitive. Take a few too many shots and the music would ramp up into this tension-fueled adrenaline rush that would make you fear for your life. It really added to the mood and atmosphere in a way similar titles hadn't managed.
Overall, Disruptor was a fantastic game. Okay, the cutscenes were filmed marginally well, with some cringy moments here and there, but it let gamers play a game in a new and engaging way that was fresh at the time.
It yielded an 8 out of 10 from IGN, would you believe? You know, back when IGN could review games. And I agree with them. It's a game that if you missed, you could go back and play now and have a lot of fun with. Replaying it again for this video has been awesome, and if you can get a copy, then go give it a try.
I hope you enjoyed this small look at Disruptor, and if you've got any suggestions of what games with live action cutscenes I should cover next, then let me know below. Of course, if you're a Disruptor fan, I'd like to hear your thoughts and memories of the game as well, so drop me a comment down below.
If you're new, then hey, thanks for tuning in. You can become a Moggoneer today by clicking that subscribe button and hitting the bell. We've got tons of content all over our channel, and I like to think that we've got something for everyone.
Don't forget to hit like, hit subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye!